everybody. This is Dan back with pointing the wrong way with
I'm over here. I'm over here.
we are here interviewing the fantastic professional artist Jeff Johnson. So thank you for agreeing to take the time to come talk with us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So let's just go ahead and jump right into it.
Sure.
So you've worked in comics for many years. How was it you got your start in the industry?
So when I was a kid, I think I learned how to read from comics when I was maybe 4 or 5. And so I've loved comics ever since then. And then always I started drawing pretty much right after that, just copying stuff out of comics. And then that's all I ever really wanted to do. So I just drew and read comics until I was, I think I was 17. And my buddy, Steve Jones, who was in a studio with me and is a comic book artist in his own right. We're in high school. We decided to put out a weekly newspaper strip in our local newspaper. And we even got them to publish it and pay us $15 a week for it. So we were we were pros pretty early on. And then I went to conventions and got to meet a bunch of artists and a couple of editors, and finally made friends with a guy named Fabian Nicieza. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yep.
He's an amazing writer and novelist, and he was working in marketing at the time at Marvel, and he got promoted to editor. And when he did get promoted, and for years he'd been helping me out, like I would send him in samples and he would send me a script, and then I would send him back those samples, and then he would give me notes and tell me what to work on, and I would do that, and I would send him the new stuff, and he kept really encouraging me and teaching me and like letting me learn the ropes a little bit. And then when he got to be an editor, one of the books he was given was Wonder Man. And so he knew, just because we had talked, how much I loved that character. I think I might have even sent in samples of that character. And he let me do some samples, and everybody liked them. And then I got the book.
Wow.
And that was pretty much it. And then he asked, this is how dumb of a kid I was. We had no idea of proper etiquette or any kind of sense of artistic decorum. He said, "Who do you want to ink you?" And I said, "Well, I mean, is Terry Austin available?" And he laughed at me, as he should have, because it was a ridiculous thing to say. But he said, "I'll ask him." And then Terry did it. So Terry inked all the covers in the first 3 issues, and it was it was an amazing experience.
Wow, I mean, that's cool.
I mean, if you get your choice of inker, I mean, that's a pretty good one to get. Shoot for the stars.
Yeah, man, shoot for the moon. I always I had no idea. Like, I knew it was an impossible ask, but I also thought, like, why not? why not ask?
Yeah, certainly. What the worst going to say is, "Oh, he's not available." It's not the worst, He said
right,
no.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So speaking of Wonder Man, you were on that series, for a while. You see,
I think I did 20, 24, 25 issues, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So, there you have the new Disney Plus series. They announced that they're doing Wonder Man, and the rumor is that it's going to take heavily from the Wonder Man book that you did. So are you excited to see what they do with it? Have you heard anything kind of behind the scenes rumblings of what they may do?
I haven't heard anything behind the scenes. I'm not part of that process. I would love to be part of the process because I love the character, but I think I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I do believe that everything I've read is it's set in LA. He's a stuntman. He's an actor. And Ben Kingsley is going to be in it. And I don't know what role he's going to be. I'm assuming he'll reprise his character in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm assuming there'll be some acting part, like it'll be part of the story as being an actor in LA. I lived in LA for a really long time. I can tell you that is that's rife with comedic possibility to actors in LA.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that they try and, I hope that they keep some of what we did in our book, which was try and humanize him a lot. Like we gave him a girlfriend, we gave him friends, we gave him existential angst. I mean, we gave him all the stuff I think that I always loved about him, but didn't always come out in the comics.
I do kind of remember one of the things from the comics where they were questioning him about having a car or not having a car, and him being like, "This is LA,"
Right. Well, that's just it. I mean, if you've been to LA, having a car, you have to have one. But if you can jump or fly, why would you like having a car is dumb.
Right.
And I heard that I did hear that Bob Odenkirk was going to be in the show too, and they're rumored that he's going to play Wonder Man's agent.
Oh, really?
That would be
cool. Yeah, I made that agent particularly slimy. I think Bob Odenkirk would be he's so good at playing that kind of like morally ambiguous character.
So when you said you really liked the character, I mean, we're all fans of him too. Sal's got his Wonder Man shirt on right now.
Nice. Nice.
So one of the things you got to do on the book was you got to design a new costume for him. What was that like, designing a new costume for not just a character that you were a big fan of, but a character that'd been around like a mainstay in Marvel for decades?
Well, I mean, I think that I was I was proud and honored to be part of that tradition, but I do think that my costume is probably the worst one. It's just
I don't know. I think the one that he got after his original one, that one was pretty
the Christmas tree one, the George Perez one.
Yeah, I love George Perez. He's one of my favorite artists, but that was better designs.
I mean, the tough thing about Wonder Man is like I think his best costume is just the straight up black W or a red W in the black shirt. I think the costume. I think it was Bob Hall or John Byrne who designed that one for the West Coast Avengers, or maybe before. I'm not sure on its origin, but like, and I modified it just a little bit. I made him I gave him some gloves and I fancied up his boots a little bit, and I gave him cooler sunglasses. But other than that, I think the simplicity of the solid black with the red W is the best look for him. But having worked on him and started trying to create a costume for him, I think he's such a complicated character, and especially like if you go to the Christmas tree one, I know that there's I've always seen that like that infinity symbol figure 8 thing that goes around his chest.
Mm-hmm.
I've never read anyone talk about it, but for me, it always looks like an energy waveform, or it looks like an ongoing infinity symbol. And so for me, that always symbolized the fact that he is an eternal hero, that he moves from energy to matter and back and forth again. He's this continuum of existence and psychology and metaphysics and all that stuff. And so for me, that hints at the fact that he is, he's kind of a simple character, but the depth of him can go a lot further than most people I think can get into. Mm-hmm. And I definitely latched onto that, especially when it comes to like what does it mean to be alive question? What is it? How do you define existence and consciousness and all that stuff? And I brought I've always loved that aspect of him. And so I tried to play that heavily up whenever I was involved in making the stories or whenever I was penciling the pages. I always really, really aimed for Wonder Man is not just a simple character. Simon is a complicated person. Mm-hmm. So all that being said, I went too far on the costume. I tried to make it, I should have just left it be the simple costume that it was with maybe some tweaks, but I went for a full blown like WM, uniform kind of. He's going to be more of a soldier, he the focus thing. And I gave him the 90s pouches because in my mind he had like emergency aid band-aids and like medical stuff and stuff he needed to actually be a more efficient hero.
Yeah.
And it was the 90s, so you can't. There was a law at the time that you had to have a minimum amount of pouches.
I was just about to say, I think it was a law in the 90s to have at least 30 to 40 pouches.
Right.
Pouches and big guns, and Wonder Man's the big gun himself. So
he is a big gun. Yeah. So I do feel like I was young, and so I was swayed by this interior concept of what I thought his costume should be, and I should have just left it alone.
I like the costume that you did with him.
You did a good job.
Thanks, guys.
I liked it.
I think it's okay, but the thing about it is it doesn't really stand out and didn't survive the test of time. I just don't think it's not a great representation of him, right? Like it's too it's there's I think the big W just is like bang,
Yeah.
here he is. Yeah.
I mean, that is the costume that, when they brought him back, when Perez brought him back in Avengers, it's pretty much that costume. They just, did a couple little tweaks to it here and there, but it's essentially that black costume with the
Yeah.
big red W.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I just think it works. I mean, whoever came up with that design first, it's just such a simple, straightforward, easy to silhouette, easy to recognize in the comic, and if you're in a hurry, easy just to to get done. Though I always added highlights, and I always made my life way harder than it had to be when it came to that.
That's all right. That's all right. I think we all do
Yeah.
that though, in our lives.
I mean, for sure.
So, was Wonder Man the book that you had the longest run on?
I think so. I've had a couple of run. I think my run on Wonder Man is the exact same length as my run on Way of the Rat.
Way of the Rat, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 25, 24, something like that.
Now
With a couple of fill-ins.
I read something that you that you were a martial artist as well.
I have done martial arts for a long time. I am not any good at them, but I love them.
Well, I wanted to ask, when you were doing the Way of the Rat series for CrossGen, how much of your martial arts that you studied kind of played into doing that book?
I think it was huge. At some point, Chuck would we would come to a fight scene, and Chuck would just have in the script, he'd be like, "Okay, they say this in the beginning of the fight scene. They say some of this stuff in the middle of the fight scene, and they have to end up here at the end of the fight scene." And he goes, "I'm not even going to try and choreograph it because that would be dumb."
Mm-hmm.
So I did all the choreography for the book.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of kung fu movies, and I've done a lot of kung fu and other martial arts, and so, and I think that I was the only one who understood, and I designed all those characters. So the judge, he did Eagle Claw kung fu. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So
I do. I know.
It's a pretty. Oh, so it's like as you know, it's pretty brutal and throat rippy, and it's a tearing system. And so I really wanted him to be kind of mean. And then every character had kind of their own specialty, because everyone had a ring of some kind, and that made either someone good with the staff or the sword or spears or daggers or fist. And so the character who had the ring of fist, his style was much more of a Hungar style. Boone was much more of a Jackie Chan, Chole Fut, bounce around, acrobatic style. And then the Silken Ghost was much more of a, even though she was Chinese, it was much more of a ninjutsu, like she was the spy. And so she was good at disappearing and hiding in plain sight and basically drifting in that cool way that they do across the tops of buildings. So everyone had their own style. And I wanted that to be part of, you could tell what their character was by the way they were fighting.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I love it.
Oh,
you
thanks,
also you also did the book draw fight scenes like a pro. So I am assuming that the martial arts background played into that. What made you decide to do a book like that?
That's a good question. Well, so I was working on Way of the Rat, and then a couple other guys at CrossGen Studios were doing books for Watson Guptill. They wanted to come out with this whole line, draw like a pro. And so Aaron Lopresti, I think, did one about monsters, draw monsters like a pro. Bart Sears was supposed to do one. A bunch of us, they just came to the studio and they asked, what book would you do? And I said, the only thing that I think I actually have an interesting take on is how to draw fight scenes. So so that's how that happened. And then I'm not sure where the other guys went with their books. I know that I finished mine, and that was after the collapse of CrossGen. So I'm not really sure. I lost touch with where that project went for everybody else.
I do remember back in the day that Bart Sears used to do the things for Wizard Magazine for the drawing tutorials in there.
Yeah, his anatomy is probably the best in the business.
Yeah. you know, there's not many people that draw a big muscular guy quite like Bart Sears does.
No, and his knowledge of the actual anatomy is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
I read something that said that you were going to do the Dragon Prince series with Ron Mars, but you had to back out of it because you've been hired by an animation studio. So what was it that made you decide to step away from comics and get into animation?
Yeah, so Ron and I came up with the Dragon Prince idea while we were at CrossGen, and then I started working on it, and it was a lot of fun. But then I got this chance to go into animation. Dave Johnson was working at Justice League Unlimited at Warner Brothers, and he was moving on to do the designs and the character designs for Ben 10. And so his office was going to, his job was became available. And he asked me if I wanted to try out for it because he knows I love backgrounds. And so I tried out and got the gig, and they didn't really even have to change the name on the door. So I just moved right in. And as much as I loved comics, and I still do, obviously it's a passion. I've come back to it now with Rogue's Kingdom. But at the time, it was such a crazy, cool opportunity to sort of sneak my way into animation. And so I did backgrounds on Justice League Unlimited for the last season, and then after that, I just loved being in animation. It's having an office to go to, and getting a weekly check, and having insurance, and retirement, and being part of a union. Like all that stuff was all the things that I'd gotten used to at CrossGen because it was a day job, and going back to being a freelancer was it just didn't have the same appeal as having that stability. So I did animation. I did that for like 15 years.
Wow. So what other than Justice League, what else did you work on there? Or was it only Justice League Unlimited?
Oh no. So Justice League Unlimited was my first job, and I did backgrounds. And then I moved over. I was going to do backgrounds on the Boondocks.
Okay.
And so while I was doing, I was doing Boondocks backgrounds for season 2, and they were having real trouble finding someone to do the likenesses of all the various actors that are in the Boondocks, and all the real people that are in Boondocks.
Right.
And so they knew that I had done a bunch of likeness stuff for Star Wars, and they needed someone to try out for that. So I tried out for that, and I did a bunch of the rappers and the actors and the characters that were going to be in season 2. And I was able to do them, to make them look like them, but still have them be in the Boondock style, which is kind of an anime tent. And so I moved over from backgrounds to characters. And I did characters on Boondocks for the entire second season. I did hundreds. Hang on a second. I'll show you guys. Hang on.
Okay. Well, this is crazy. I love this.
Yeah. Oh, I love the Boondocks, man. That was must-see TV when it was on.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, wow.
So I'd done comics my whole career. And in animation, I had done, a season of backgrounds. And then they asked me to do all these characters. And that second season had hundreds of characters. I don't know. Do you guys watch the second season of Boondocks? Did you watch the show?
I watched all of them.
Dan did,
every episode.
Right. Wow. So this is a binder of just all the background characters, hundreds of people in the mall, people that would go to the record store, people that were in the movie theater. Like it was my first animation character gig, and it's still the hardest job I've ever done. Like there was just so many different characters to do. Everybody changes their costume every episode. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then here's another one. It's just so
cool.
many. Yeah, just hundreds and hundreds of these guys.
Now season 2 was that the season where they had the Chris Hansen episode? Where they went where it was Chris Hansen at the beginning of it, and then with the Booty Warrior, and then they had the tour of the jail.
I can't remember if that was. I think that was.
I can't remember, but that was my favorite episode of it.
That sounds pretty good. My favorite one is the one where we do the whole Enter the Dragon thing with the crazy wolf bitch that goes into like it's
Oh
a
yeah,
kung fu competition. Yeah. Because
Or,
I got to watch Enter the Dragon a bunch, and all the characters that are standing behind them when they fight, they're all the same dudes who are in that final fight scene between Bolo and Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I can't remember. Like I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen them. Which
It was
which
2002.
one and two, like
It's legit.
A Pimp Named Slickback, was that one of the ones?
Oh yeah, I did that one.
That was a great one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, I gotta remember before I forget. Let me throw your.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Thugalicious.
There we go. Let me throw your
Thanks for
socials
that.
up there so people know where to find you on Instagram and Twitter.
Very cool.
It's not up there.
I just remember they're like, no, it's like a Tribe Called Quest. You got to say the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it's not up there. It's good. It went off.
I can see it.
It's
oh,
on.
you can?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's just not for me. Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. So one of the funniest things about it is like I had to draw like all these women in like they called it the bitch tank, and so it was all these women like in swimsuits, and then there was just so many. It's a very funny cartoon. It's a little bit edgy, but like it was a very fun job, but it gave me such great training that when I moved on from doing that to I was a background, not a character, but like a second tier character guy on Spectacular Spider-Man. So you always need someone like you have the main guy, the character designer, and he does the straight on shot of the character, whoever that is, whether it's Huey or Spider-Man or the Rhino or whatever. And then someone else has to come in and do the mechanical job of spinning that drawing in space. So when you send it overseas, they know exactly what he looks like from all angles.
Right. So I actually noticed that in the drawings that you had, or just there for the Boondocks, you saw the front angle, then you saw a side angle of the characters. And I remember I watched the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon as well because I'm a big Spider-Man fan.
Oh, it's great. It's a great cartoon.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. I remember the end credits showed those type of stills as well.
Oh, did they? I don't remember that.
I believe they did.
Very cool.
So other Spider-Man shows also did that too, but I'm not sure if that was just the way they did it, but that must have been pulled from like whatever work was done or submitted for those.
Oh,
shows.
I'm sure it was the production art. Yeah, you do that. You do a 5-point turn depending on or a 3-point turn depending on how much you see the character and how many angles they're going to be at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and so it's mostly just math, and technical drawing to get the real inspiration comes from the lead character designer.
Okay.
And on Spider-Man, it was Sean Galloway Cheeks, who's a genius when it comes to like his volumes and his shapes and his designs. I mean, you saw the show. Nothing ever looked like it before or has since.
Right. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
So, of all the animation that you worked on, what would you say was your favorite one? What was your favorite show to do?
I don't know. I mean, I've liked so many of the shows. I've been real lucky that all the shows I've been on have been pretty amazing. There's a scene in Batman Bad Blood, which I worked on the DVD in the opening, where Robin and Damian are fighting a bunch of guys. They're fighting the guy with the face. I can't remember his name at the moment. Rose. Yeah, he has no face. They're fighting him, and it takes place on a dock with a bunch of cranes and cargo carrying things, and so I got to really draw. And so there's a fight scene that takes place on a moving van or a moving truck with stuff with a machine gun in it. It was just one of the most epic scenes I've ever been able to draw, and it just sort of worked out that way, and it came out really great in the cartoon. Sometimes you spend a lot of time doing something and it doesn't come out the way you hoped it would. But that was great. But I think one of my all-time favorites is I got to do the opening scene or the opening credits for the Mike Tyson show. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but it's like...
Oh, I didn't see that, but that must have been cool.
Right, it's Super Johnny Quest.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a funny show.
It's such a funny show, and the credits so it's Tyson, and it's comedy, but it doesn't joke around. Like the opening credits are full blown Johnny Quest.
Oh yeah.
So I got to do it all the wildy stuff, and so I played up. Like he punches a T-Rex in the mouth, he rides a pterodactyl. There's a spaceship shooting their van as they drive. Yeah, so that's probably the most fun I ever had, and that's on screen for like 4 seconds.
Wow.
It's awesome though. Yeah, and I always thought it was funny too that like everything that's in the credits, the opening credits is never in the show and never really addressed in the show.
Right. No, never. At one point, the girl, she is in a submarine doing stuff. She's never in a submarine, right? Like it's just, there's never a spaceship that chases them. But I did this double pyramid spaceship thing with an eye on it. Super Johnny Quest. Yeah, it was good times.
Nice. Let me ask you this. I worked at Warner Brothers, so I got the studio store. Nothing important. I was just a
were you on the lot?
What's that?
Were you on the lot?
No. I never got to be on the lot. To tell you the truth, okay. I was a low guy. I was the go get this, go get that type of thing. Okay. But I worked at the studio store, and I got to buy some animation art, and I learned a lot about animation art back then too. And this was back in the mid 90s time frame, and how each drawing was like a 32nd of a shot of a second type of thing, and they would have to like draw 32 consecutive pictures to make that frame move. So a lot of cartoons after that, they started switching to more computer generated, where they would draw out like it was storyboard. They would do the main points, and then they would kind of computer generate the in between scenes, as I would say. Did you ever do any of the computer generated stuff, or did you draw everything like motion for motion? Like
I never did any of the computer generated stuff. Like that's
okay. That's good. That's good. I love it.
Yeah, I think that there's the different kinds of animation. The stuff I always worked on was I did some 3D. So I always did the pre-production stuff, which was storyboards, character design, background design, some prop. So mostly I worked on paper. And then I have a Cintiq when I do storyboards, but you're still just hand drawing everything. So I wish there was a program that I knew how to use that would help me out. But I'm still a dinosaur. I still do everything by hand. I still draw every gesture. I still do all that stuff.
Nice. That's cool though. My only claim to fame is I have an original production cell from the Batman animated series from one section, and it's just one snippet. It's an actual production cell that they used to make in that cartoon.
Oh,
nice. Well, I mean, was it Bruce Timm doing storyboards? Is it Bruce Timm drawing basically?
Yeah, it's a Bruce Timm storyboard, but I don't know who actually did the cell himself. It was probably whatever crew they had.
Oh yeah,
doing the art. It was
Japanese at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
So you showed us the binders. Did you get to like all the drawings and work you did on animation? You got to keep all of that, or at least some of it, I assume.
I mean, so the thing about it is like you keep. So most of those are photocopies. Some of them some of them the real drawings. I do have a ton. Like back in the day, you draw on paper, and I have storyboards that I have drawn. You get 3 on a page, and so you draw them on paper, and then you scan. Then you need. Back in the day, there wasn't even scanners. We didn't have computers. You just drew. You drew on paper, and then you handed a gigantic stack over to the timer, and they would have a stopwatch, and they would go like, "This takes this long. This takes that long," and they would write it all down. And so I have a bunch of that old stuff, and I have a bunch of old character drawings, the roughs. But what happens is you draw it, you photocopy it, you give it to your director or someone else. They draw on top of that, then you draw on that, and so eventually everyone kind of comes to a drawing that's that is approved and everybody likes. So those drawings are often those drawings are gone, like the combo things. I have some of the old ones, but now everything's done on my Cintiq. I draw in a program called Toon Boom, and then you make an animatic and you play it, and it's much easier for everyone. It's such a team sport that it takes so many people's hands to make a cartoon.
Yeah.
So what would you say the big differences are between drawing comics and doing animation?
So I think it's a really interesting question, and it comes up a lot because they're super similar. And the analogy I've always used is if comics is speaking French, then animation is speaking Italian. they're similar roots. This is a lot of the same skills and a lot of the same structure, but they're not necessarily, they're not the same language. So a lot of the skills translate from comics to animation, but they have to be honed in a different way. I guess it would be kind of like if I understand music and I can play guitar, then learning the piano, right, might be a way to like, it's still an understanding of music and it's understanding of theory, but it's it's an entirely different set of manual skills. And so there's that. And also I think as a comic artist, you do everything. You just do it all by yourself. Like you draw everything. Like for Way of the Rat, I actually, Way of the Rat, I designed all the various, I drew all the weapons that everybody was going to have. So I drew all the props and I tailored them to every character, all the costumes and the backgrounds and all that stuff. And then when I worked on Transformers Prime, I was just a storyboard guy, and I just drew storyboards. And so since it was going to be a 3D, right? So it's CG animated. All my drawings can be super, super rough. They just have to make sure that it's clear about when they build it in CG, what's happening and who's doing what. So the separations of labor, I think, is one of the best things about animation, because you get to just hone one skill. Like for years, I just drew characters standing there. I didn't do storytelling or comics or backgrounds or anything. I just worked on shape and volume and form and function. So when it comes to storytelling, it's the biggest difference, and this is a bit esoteric, is like, so when you draw a comic, you are creating the illusion of time passing. And then when you draw a storyboard, you are using a set fixed time. You're using 24 frames per second. And that never changes. So but you still have to play with how people experience it, but it's a constant in animation where it's a variable in comic books. So learning how to do that takes a while, because you actually cheat quite a bit in comics when you go from panel to panel. The reader does a ton of work for you, right? So
imagination makes it up.
Yeah, right. So and the reader's imagination really does a lot of work in a comic, and in animation, it doesn't. You give them every frame of that story.
Do you have a preference between which you prefer working in, comics or animation, or is it kind of, I have two kids and I love both of them just a little differently?
I think I love them both the same, but the first one, you're always a little more attached to the first one. So comics is my first love. So yeah, I do love them both, but I think comics is probably my favorite.
Was there anything that because you were saying how different they are, was there anything that you learned that you did in animation that when you eventually went back to comics, was something that helped you out in your work then?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. If you look at my stuff before my time in animation and my stuff now on Rogue's Kingdom, it's totally different. The way I approach drawing is different. The way I design stuff is different. The way I design a page, the flow I'm trying to get, the storytelling I'm trying to capture, it's all different. It's totally, I mean, my understanding of what to draw and why to draw changed dramatically over those years. I mean, when I got super lucky and I had good writers and I had great teams and I was able to do, I think, a lot of fun work before I got into animation. But honestly, it was more enthusiasm than skill.
That's cool.
So, you eventually did leave animation to come back to comics. What was it that made you decide to jump back into the comics industry?
I think I really just missed it. I missed making comics. Like I love being in a studio, and I got to meet a lot of amazing artists. Like there's a lot of, like, one of the tough things about animation is that I sat next to some of the best guys in LA, which means I sat next to some of the best guys in the world who are doing this stuff at that level. Like my friend Andy Chang is the background designer, or not the prop designer at Warner Brothers for almost all the Batmobiles that have been in, and like all the cartoons and the TV and the DVDs. Like he's an amazing designer, but his name flies by. right? And so the only one who really gets to ever see you see his work, and it looks brilliant on screen. Like his Batmobiles are super cool, but like no one apart from having a consistent job and being working at the studios and having and liking what he does, his name just flies by. And I guess I was too narcissistic to really kind of like I wanted someone to see my name, be like, oh, there he is, that's Jeff, this is his book. In comics you can do that, where animation you really can't.
It's one thing to tell somebody I worked on this show. It's another thing to hand them a comic and say, I drew all of this.
I did this.
I did this. Here I am. Which is, it's a mixed. It's a double-edged sword, because one of the reasons Rogue King it's taken me so long is because I'm so passionate about it that I double check and redraw and worry over everything. And when you're doing a storyboard and animation, you don't have time for any of that self-indulgent crap. You have a deadline. You're there for 8 to 24 hours, depending on what's going on. So you are just working, and it's liberating in a way to be like, oh, I can't get wrapped up in my own head. This has got to be done. So
go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Now.
I was going to say, were all your deadlines from companies like that, or is there certain companies that were worse than others?
I mean, listen, I am a deadline nightmare, generally speaking. So even if it was a good deadline, I probably screwed the pooch on it. So that's I'm not gonna candy coat it. Like I can get obsessive, but when I was in animation, like there wasn't really the choice for that. Like the deadline's the deadline. You go in, you sit down, and it's the job, right? So one of the tough things about being a comic book artist as opposed to an animator is, like, in animation, you go to an office, you sit at a desk, you have a boss and someone who is standing over you being like, I don't care how you feel about that drawing, it has to be done.
Yeah.
Whereas comics, it's you're all by yourself. You have to be your own boss, and you're like your own IT department, which sucks. And you just have to. I mean, that's the part I hate the most. Is like I have to figure out my own computer shit. Yeah. That drives me crazy.
You talking about being in animation and not being good at deadlines? It kind of reminds me of Dave Stevens. I watched that documentary on him a couple of weeks ago. Where they talked about when he was doing animation that the other storyboard artists would do like 50 storyboards a day, and they go like, "What do you have, Dave?" He's like, "I did 8." Right. Or even the Rocketeer, it would take him like 2 years between issues because he'd spend like 2 weeks just inking a foot until he got it just the way he wanted it.
It's easy to get. I mean, it's easy to get lost in it. I mean, the goal as a professional is to be able to balance that sense of perfection that you're going for and the sense of reality, which is that if you don't ever finish it, people can't see it. And that's always been, I'm much better at that. That's one of the reasons I like cross-gen, because I'm much better about getting out of my own way when there's other stuff happening.
Yeah.
Left to my own devices, I have a tendency to get lost in the weeds.
Well, you talk about cross-gen. You've worked for, DC, Marvel, Malibu, Image, CrossGen, Valiant. Like, what's the difference between each company when it comes to the work and what's expected and the atmosphere, the culture?
Interesting. I think so most comic book companies and most jobs are pretty similar. Everyone kind of knows each other, right? So if you're a lot of times an editor at one company will wind up being an editor at another company, and so the companies themselves are pretty much, you get the job, you get a deadline, you do the job, hopefully in time for the deadline, and the book goes out and you get paid. CrossGen was the first time. I mean, even Malibu, who gave us a better percentage of stuff, still had that basic. You worked in your own office, your own studio, and you're sent the script, and you work on it that way. CrossGen was the first time I'd ever gone into an office and worked in a studio space. So that was the only time that was really ever the process was any different. And I liked it. I really liked it. Not the biggest fan of Florida, but Florida wasn't that bad either. Like the beer was cheap and cold, and it was, the weather was. I mean, it's Florida. It's beautiful.
Man, my brother lives just outside of Tampa. He loves it.
Yeah, that's where CrossGen was. Yeah. In Oldsmar, just outside Tampa. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Of all the characters that you worked, because you worked on a lot of characters, a lot of different companies, who was your favorite one to draw?
I think, It's tough to say because I like all comics generally speaking, and a lot of characters for different reasons. But my favorite all-time character is still Spider-Man. I still love drawing Peter Parker. I still love Spider-Man. Like, whenever I'm drawing for fun, if I'm just sitting like at a drink and draw, or if I'm sitting waiting for a plane and I'm just keeping my hand busy, inevitably it'll be Spider-Man. So it's it just sort of happens. You're like, oh, there's a cool shot of Spider-Man, and I just love any chance to draw that character. He's just a lot of fun.
Do you have a preference on which type of costume you like to draw him in, like the classic or the black or the?
I just I love the old school
blue?
John Romita Sr. I like the wider web.
Yeah.
That's the one I grew up with. I understand the need for the thin, more Todd McFarlane web. I get it. It's cool looking. But I still like a Ross Andrew, John Romita Sr., John Romita Jr., wider web. I like that costume.
Do you draw it with like the webbing armpits that he had back in the day?
Sometimes. If I remember them, I'll put them in. But generally speaking, I don't put them in because they like, you're like, oh shit, I forgot. He's got these little webs under there. Yeah. I especially like him. I like drawing them, especially if you're going to tear him, right? If you get a little like if he's beat up a little bit, I think that's always a good way to show he's been in a fight.
Well, are there any characters that you, or anything in particular that you don't like drawing?
I'm not a real I don't like. I like drawing horses. I like drawing horse bodies, but I'm terrible. I cannot get horse heads. So when you see where they're at, when you see the PDF I sent, or when you get the book, you'll see that there are a lot of centaurs.
Yeah.
But there's more centaurs than there's horses. And that's because I'm not that good at the horse heads, but I'm okay at the horse bodies.
Well, are there any characters that you really wish, or that you really want to draw, like, not just as a commissioner or something, but like professionally to do their book, that you haven't gotten a chance to do yet?
If this is going to sound crazy, but if I could do a Marvel book and I could actually have some time, because this would take forever, I would do a Jack of Hearts space adventure.
Oh, I love Jack of Hearts. That's such a cool costume.
Yeah, I love that costume.
Yeah.
I love that costume. But you really have to slow down and enjoy you're like, okay, now I'm just hanging out and drawing, making sure that this costume works and it looks great. Because I would love to do like a space opera, Guardians of the Galaxy, Jack of Hearts. I would love to do something like that.
All right, Marvel, if you're paying attention.
Yep. Because the whole execs are always watching our shows.
Right
there, hit them up.
Yeah, the huge Jack of Hearts fan base out there.
Hey, he was just in supporting character in the newest She-Hulk book, so.
Oh, really? Was he? Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it was he was dating She-Hulk on her latest book.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I mean, he's such I think he's such an artist favorite. I know that I like him as a fan. I just don't know how you do that costume monthly.
Yeah. One thing I saw when I was looking up stuff for this is that in 2019 you started a YouTube channel called the Original Drink and Draw Social Club. But I saw that you guys haven't done anything with that in about a year. Can you tell us kind of how that came about, and what made you decide to do it and then ultimately stop doing it?
Yeah, so in 2005, Dan Panosian and Dave Johnson and my friend Steve Jones all got together and were hanging out. And it was Dave Johnson's idea. He's like, let's all, I know, you guys all have wives and girlfriends and lives and stuff. It's like, but if we get together and we draw and hang out doing that, it's kind of like work. So they can't really have a problem with it. And we started meeting every week or so. And then, and Dave, we called it the Drink and Draw, the Original Drink and Draw Social Club. And we would every week would go to a bar and we'd hang out and just draw and just to have fun, right? And just draw for fun and hang out. Because even though we all know each other and we were all friends, we all had our own deadlines and we all worked by ourselves. And so it was a really great way to just experience, some community. And then a lot of other artists animators, comic book artists, fashion designers, graphic designers all heard about it in LA and started coming out and joining us. And then we put out a book through Image, and then we put out a couple volumes of that, and then I moved away from Los Angeles in like 2015, I think, and then we really missed doing it, and so we decided to do it as a YouTube show, and we did that for a couple years, right? I forget how long. We had a lot of really great guests, and Joe Quesada was on it.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, we talked to Walt Simonson, we talked to Howard Chaykin, we talked to Neil Gaiman, we talked to Kevin Smith, we talked to just lots of comic book people. And then schedules got tough, and it was hard to plan stuff. And then we wound up just not being able to get back to it for a while. And we've done a new version of it where we all got together, are in the same place, and we filmed it. And so we had Bill Sienkiewicz on that, and that has not been released yet, but I do know that is in the works. So we're going to do it again.
Awesome.
But it'll be instead of a show like this where we're all coming in from separate locations, we'll all come together in one place and have like an old school drink and draw party.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. It's a lot of fun because, I mean, as much as drawing with those guys online is, it's a good substitute. It's not the actual thing, but there's, we're all hanging out and there's music and you can see what each other's doing. You can look over their shoulders. Like, that was the best. That was the most fun.
Yeah. Did you ever peek over someone's shoulder and be like, I think you can draw that lamp a little bit better?
No. Yeah. More pouches. One of the things that I thought was educational is, like, if you look over Dan's shoulder while he's drawing, it's this gorgeous thing that he is just attacking the page with pure confidence, right? It's just a samurai watching a samurai work. And then Dave Johnson would come up with this crazy image, and it was just elegant. You're like, oh shit, this is really amazing. But the worst was walking over Bill Sienkiewicz's shoulder while you're like, what is he doing? I can't even tell what it is. And then he flips it over, and it's this stunning drawing of a woman that he has used the side of his hand to do like graphite. It's so the tough thing is looking over better artists' shoulders and just thinking, fuck.
Nice. That's funny. Yeah. I actually checked out that YouTube show, and I watched the episode with the X-Men 133 because that happens to be the very first comic X-Men book that I ever read in my when I was a child.
Oh, right on. Oh yeah, so that was another round. So we did that in tangent to the Drink and Draw show, where me, Scott Collins, artist in the Flash, and then my friend Steve Jones, who I've been friends with since high school, and we've done a ton of stuff with, and he's been in animation. He worked on the original Batman cartoon and Batman Beyond. So he's been doing storyboards and character designs in animation for a super long time. So
right.
We would, instead of our goal was to pick a comic that we really liked or have an animator on that we really liked and just do a deep dive on the X. And we did 130. Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite issues too. We went deep on that.
Yeah.
We went every panel. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, went through it panel by panel, which I loved. And
yeah.
Was it you that was doing the drawing of Wolverine? That you redid the like a panel of it? Did you redraw one?
Yeah, I did. I did some panels from it, and we talked about like how John Byrne was brilliant storytelling, and like we talked about that. But also, I did a fake cover where it was that scene where he's fighting those Hellfire guys. Yeah, but it was from one of the Hellfire guys' point of view, looking at Wolverine as he was coming at him. Yeah.
Yep. That was great. That was great. I loved it.
That was a lot of fun. It's like that.
Yeah, I bet it was. And that, like I said, I just love that book. It's one of my slab books up on that wall. It's signed by Chris Claremont too. So that's a gem in my collection right there. So
yeah, that's one of the ones you just got signed at Baltimore, right?
I did. Yep. I got four books signed by him in Baltimore.
I imagine the line was horrendous.
The line was horrendous, but luckily Dan and I got there early enough, and I jumped into that line when it wasn't too deep. So I was probably about an hour, maybe hour and a half in that line. And I was going to check out some other artists, and Dan being a good buddy that he is, he goes, oh, I'll go stand in line for you over here at this for John Bogdanove drawing, and I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
I love
okay.
his stuff. Yeah, John
Yep,
Bogdanove.
I got a book signed by him and Louise Simonson. It's a Superman,
And they got the remark.
Reign of Superman one. So I got a remark on that one as well.
Well, I
Very
told
cool.
It's funny because I told Sal, I was like, oh well, he's doing the signature for free and he's doing remarks for $25. He's like, oh, he gave me 25. He's like, get the remark. I went, what do you want? And he's trying to think. I went, since I'm waiting in line, it doesn't matter what you say because I'm going to tell him to draw a dick and balls on it.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously.
Luckily for him, he got finished with the Claremont line and then came over before Bogdanove got to do it because he was also in the midst of doing, his line wasn't real long, but in the midst of doing signatures, he was also doing sketches if anyone came up and wanted that. But he was doing them like super nice and detailed, so it was taking a while. So yeah, Sal had time to like get the Claremont signature, get Louise Simonson's signature, and then get in line, get it himself, and got a real nice remark.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
very cool.
He's one of my all-time favorite artists. I worked with Chris Claremont once on a comic called Sovereign 7. I did the annual.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I remember that from DC.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, the cool thing was he was kind of chit-chatting with everyone in line, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He chatted with me a lot, and I was like kind of fanboying out. I admit it. I was like, I love your stuff, But I told him, that was my favorite book. That was because that was the first X-Men book I ever read. And he was like, he's like, oh yeah, that's awesome, dude. What did you like about it? And really interacted with me well, and I loved that. That was great.
Yeah, I mean that's going to make those signatures that much more special to you because you don't just have the signature; you have the story that goes with it too.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, he's such an icon. He's just such a legend. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we'll go ahead and get into it. You've mentioned it a couple of times, and the thing that you have going on right now is the Kickstarter that's called Rogue's Kingdom, which is the book that you're doing with the writer James Robinson. So, can you kind of tell us how that project came about with the two of you? Getting together to work on it and kind of how you came up with it.
Yeah. So I moved, I guess it's about 8 years now. I moved out of LA and I moved up to Oregon. And was doing freelance storyboards, still from LA and working still on doing some animation stuff. I worked on Prime and I worked on Robots in Disguise. Which were really, really fun. But while I was doing that, I really kind of was missing comics. I was missing just sort of because you draw on the screen and it's fine. And I like drawing, the action of drawing, but I missed having, paper, but I missed doing a comic book. And then James and I have known each other since the Malibu days when he was working on Firearm.
And you were doing Solitaire?
Yeah, I did Solitaire. And I don't even remember how it kind of started. I think my friend Steve might have suggested that we do something together. And we just started talking about if we were to do a comic, what kind of comic would we want to do? And we really kind of created it from that idea of what would I want to draw? What would James want to write? And we wound up coming up with this really fun fantasy idea about a kid who is sort of a street urchin, a scamp, a little Artful Dodger kind of character. And then this other guy who, and that kid is named Peachy. And then the other character's name is Rondo. And he's sort of a traveling bard / swordsman. If you play D&D, I think you'd be classified as a swashbuckler. So really kind of like, you guys play D&D?
I did a lot with my youth. I did a lot with my youth.
Yeah, I played it. We actually started a little while ago for the CODEX station here with some of us because a couple guys played and some of us didn't. I'd never played before, but one of us had the idea like, hey, let's we'll start a D&D thing and we'll stream it every time we play it. And I think we did 2 or 3 times, and then some stuff kind of got in the way, but we're going to restart doing it soon. It was the first time that I've ever played it.
Did you like it?
I liked it, but I find myself trying to rush through the story. So every opportunity that the character I created is named Kilgore the Death Slayer. who's I actually like,
Fun.
it's a character that I came up with and drew as when I was a kid as like a Conan parody. I was like, oh, I'll use that for this, and I came up with a backstory for him. So the basically the way I described him is that he's the living embodiment of fuck around and find out. So every instance that it comes to me to do something, I'm trying to commit as much violence as possible. But
Right.
Yes.
at one point when we met the first character, one of the other guys I met in a bar who wanted to fight minotaurs, so I was like, well, I'm gonna pick him, like his character, like I'm gonna pick him up and I'm gonna throw him at the minotaurs, but the dice just do not work in my favor.
Oh, well, thank God, because I'm sure no one likes being thrown into a minotaur. My character would be very annoyed at your character if you picked me up and threw me into a minotaur.
Well, the other guy's character,
I bet that's really fun to play.
The other guy's character who did it, it's his first time playing too. So what I think he's a dwarf, but
she's a dragonborn.
A dragonborn,
dwarf dragonborn, yeah.
Dragonborn, but has like basically the personality of Deadpool.
Oh, cool! All right, that's a perfect character for a fastball special.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yep.
But yeah, so yeah, I've looked at the Kickstarter. I was actually the 9th backer on it.
Thank you.
I'm disappointed that I didn't get to be first because I knew that when the day you were launching it, and I sat there and had my phone open. I was like, it's going to be soon, and I had it open.
Yeah.
So because I'd clicked on the watch list thing, and I was like, as soon as it get the email that it's launched, I'm going to go back it. But I had taken my daughter to Red Robin, which is one of her 2 favorite restaurants to eat dinner.
I love Red Robin burger. That's a good burger.
Yes, it is.
And she was sitting there watching YouTube cartoons on my phone. And when we walked back to the car, I was like, oh, it launched. And I was like, oh, there's already 8 people ahead of me. Like, well, at least I'm in the top 10.
I really do appreciate all the support. Yeah. So James and I came up with this really cool story. So it's the 2 main characters and then a third character, the princess, who is our Zorro character. She's a princess in disguise, and she fights crime in the city, and she dresses up, and she has a cool outfit. And then so Peachy and Rondo get wrapped in this gigantic political quagmire of stuff where the king someone's trying to assassinate the king. They wind up not being very reluctant heroes and saving the day. And so I like, it's got tons of magic in it, and it's got tons of sword fighting, and it's got monsters, and it's got dragons, and it's got some romance, and it's basically, I set it in 17th century France fundamentally because I wanted to have like a different kind of combat from the kung fu that I did in Way of the Rat. So it's more classic European swordsmanship. There's sabers and foils and lances and more of that kind of action scene. And so it's kind of like Three Musketeers meets Lord of the Rings. Okay. But more of like, not so much Lord of the Rings, more like Three Musketeers meets The Hobbit, which is a little more kid friendly. So I think that we have tons and tons of stories to do in this world. James has written a really wonderful short story for every issue that we're going to put out from Kickstarter. So we're going to do the first one, and it looks like we're doing pretty good. So that means we'll be able to do the second and third and fourth. And then every 5 or 6 issues, we'll put out like a trade paperback of that collected story. And then in those, James has written really great prose stories that I've done little illustrations for. And James is even, I think, working on a novel. I'm like, the world is gigantic. So hopefully we'll be doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, I'm just checking out the page now. Anyone else that wants to check it out, the link is right there on the screen. It looks like you're just over $10,000. So considering,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, considering that you just launched it, it's been up 3 days. That's almost fully funded in 3 days is pretty impressive.
That's great. Well, I mean, James is a powerhouse and an industry. He's easily, everybody knows, he's an industry favorite. Everybody knows and loves his work, and he's really amazing. And he's been doing a lot of stuff in TV lately, so he hasn't really been doing much comics. And so this is one of his first getting back in the comics game, and it's such a great project, and he's written such great characters. I really think people are going to like it.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now, and I'm thinking I'm going to be pledging here very soon. Tell you the truth.
Oh, awesome!
I love it. Your artwork is fantastic on there. Sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say,
man.
yeah, anyone wants to check it out. The page has, I think it's the first 6 or 7 pages of the book, and then it's got some sample pages from 2 and 3. It's got character designs. It's got part of the prose. I actually didn't, when I was looking at all of it and reading the things for the character designs, I actually decided not to read the prose thing because like I already know I'm backing it. Like I want to wait till I get the book to actually to read that. But anybody that wants to jump in, like it's all there. It looks, yeah, he's right. It looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you guys. Yeah. Well, I mean, so James and I have been working on it very hard for a very long time. And then we have Brendan Wagner doing the colors, and he's exceptional. He's got such a flair. And the book looks lush, and it looks, vivid, and its colors are fantastic.
So are you doing the penciling and inking both?
Yeah. So I was going to have,
Terry
I wound up over penciling. Yeah. So I wound up having over penciling. Yeah. I have to do the inking, sadly. Like we can't, there's no way we could afford any. Yeah. Terry Austin was too busy. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. And also I over penciled this book. There's a background almost in every panel. There's elaborate, palaces, and the everyone has a completely detailed sword. And so I went a little bananas. It would have been unfair to have anyone else try and ink it. So I went ahead and did it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that first, the top image when you get into it, where it's that city scene. I mean, the detail that you did on that town and even the boats on the water, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I went a little bit. I spent a lot of time doing that one. Well, I wanted to establish the world that they're living in. I wanted to make it real and inviting for everyone.
So the campaign under the the risk thing, it says it's fully done, it's ready to print, and you have the sample pages from 2 and 3, and I know when we did the shorter interview, you said 2 is already done, and you started on. So how far into the 3rd issue are you right now?
So the 3rd issue. So I've done a bunch of so when I do a pencil, I mean the sample on the page is a 2-page spread from issue 3. I think it's page 20 and 21. I've done a ton of the pencils for issue 3 and the rest of the layouts, which are much looser than that. And then I have to ink it, and then we have to get it colored. So issue 2, we're waiting. Excuse me. We're going to jump on finishing the lettering, coloring, getting it up to production ready as soon as we're done with the Kickstarter and we get everyone their books. And so once everyone has their first issue in hand, we'll probably launch the second one, because the second one will be ready. So my dream is to have a campaign, get it out to everybody who wants it, and then the minute they have it and they're thinking like, oh, what happens next, that the campaign will be running and you can get the next one. So
how many issues total do you think that the book, do you have planned for the book to run?
So we have the first story arc is 5 issues. The second story arc is 6 issues. And in the second story arc, I'm just going to throw out like, there might be a lot of dragons who live on a mountaintop in a city that's carved out of the mountaintop.
Oh, nice.
That sounds pretty cool.
That does.
There also might be, right. So it's the city in the clouds, and there are all different kinds of dragons. There's the big dragons with wings, and they're gigantic, and then there's smaller dragons without wings, and then there's the dragons. Some fly, some don't. Some take care of the city, some are the royalty of the city, some are library. Like, so there's an entire world of dragons. And that's in the second story arc. And then in the third story arc, there might be Yetis. I mean, I don't, we have so many stories planned. I think maybe in the 4th story arc, there's a huge battle between wizards, because Peachy he's a street urchin, but he winds up becoming the city's wizard and protector, and has to eventually prove himself to the other wizards who are very, very old. And so there's going to be a wizard tournament. So we have lots of stuff planned.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Spoiler.
I would say at this point we probably have 50 issues roughed out. Like that, we have a plan for 50
Wow.
issues, but we have ideas for 100.
Well, that's a lot of Kickstarter campaigns. Do you think that they're, I know in the other, when we were talking before, you said that the reason that you kind of had something at Image, but it was taking you so long to get each issue done that it was too hard to meet a deadline. Do you think that with the plan to have the series run this long, that at some point you might move it from just doing a Kickstarter for every issue, that you might move it to publishing it through like an Image or a Dark Horse or some other company?
I mean, if we can get up enough fan base and I can get up enough consistency to where I'm doing it on a regular basis, I think anything's possible. We don't really know. Like, it really depends on if the fans like it, if I can get the work done, which I'm better at now that I've just been focusing on Rogue's Kingdom for a while now. So the dream would, like, I'm never going to be a monthly guy. That's never going to happen. However, James could write a monthly book, and it would be super cool if I do an arc and then James writes another Rogue's Kingdom arc with other great artists. And so I think it's a universe that that could support like a monthly book at least.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, even if I'm not drawing it, there's James has so many ideas that would be, I think, great material for other artists.
One of the things I liked when I was looking at the all of the I don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for, the rewards that you have on there is you got the standard stuff that you have for for comic Kickstarters, where you can get it as a PDF, you can get it as the printed issue, you can get all the different covers. I like when I was scrolling down that I saw that one of the options you have is a blank sketch cover, and that if I'm not mistaken, that you have the thing where somebody can get the original art like sketch for you, but that you'll do it on the sketch cover. I think that's such a cool idea, because I've thought that before in other Kickstarter because I've backed some for a lot of comics, that where they have the thing where there's always a thing where someone can get a a sketch or a drawing done. It's like you should do a blank sketch cover for the book, and then you can do it right on the book and send it to them for that. So that was a really cool idea on your part.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I would love to take credit for that, but someone smarter than me came up with that. Like, this is how you do it. So, plus I love drawing. I like doing sketches on covers. I sketch all the time. So the chance to just draw some cool shit on a book is always something I'll jump at.
What would you say? This is something I always ask, all the artists that I talk to. What would you say is the most bizarre commission request that you've ever gotten?
Well, every once in a while you get asked to draw a person doing, as a character, right? And so sometimes that can be odd, especially when someone is like, I want to be this super sexy version of whatever this is. So that can be a little bit weird. I got asked to draw Ariel once, the Little Mermaid, at a show, which I'm like, oh, I mean, I wasn't expecting that. Generally, I don't really get weird requests. I've heard other people get some. Oh, you know what I just did at a show? A guy asked me to draw just Wonder Man's arm. So it was just a shot like this from like the side, right? Not even the face. It's just the arm, and I had a bunch of Kirby crackle around it. But that was one of the most fun and odd ones I've ever had. Just the arm.
An arm.
Just the arm.
Well, as far as odd ones, I think Sal would like to get himself drawn as the Little Mermaid.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, that works. I can see that.
That's a pass. That's a pass. Okay, that's a pass.
So what would you say is the coolest commission idea you've ever gotten, where someone comes and says, "Hey, can you draw this?" and you go like, "Wow, like, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that'll be really cool."
I get those all the time. I really get some cool ones. So I'm working on right now. and he wanted. It's basically it's Superman and Captain America fighting Lex Luthor and the Red Skull, and there's a giant robot involved.
Oh wow!
So yeah. The other one I got that I did a little while ago, which was a lot of fun. It was the Vision in Wonder Man fighting a giant robot. Clearly, I love robots, giant robots. So I did a Vision in Wonder Man fighting a giant robot in downtown Manhattan, which was a lot of fun. And I never would have drawn that otherwise. That thing took forever.
It'd be kind of cool to see, since they have the close relationship between Wonder Man and Vision, maybe draw like Wonder Man wearing Vision's costume and Vision wearing Wonder Man's costume, them kind of looking at each other, be like, I don't think this is right.
You mean like if they were both like coming out of Wanda's room?
Yeah.
On.
Yeah.
She's just standing there with a smile on her face.
Right, that's an interesting idea. I have to try that.
There you go.
Yeah, that's money in the bank.
So, well, one of the questions I was going to ask is if you had anything else lined up or anything else you were going to do after Rogue's Kingdom is complete. But it sounds like you're going to be doing Rogue's Kingdom for quite a while.
I'm going to be doing Rogues for as long as I can. It's a rich world, and I really like drawing it, and I like hanging out in it. And
would there be any giant robots in it at any point?
There's going to be giant golems. There's going to be magical robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's going to be.
You can have a metal golem. You can have a metal golem.
Yeah, you can have a metal golem for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the little robot from the second Wizard of Oz movie, TikTok?
I don't remember. Was he a little golem, little robot golem?
Yeah, the little round robot guy.
Oh,
they had to like wind him up.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to look at that. I don't remember that guy.
Yeah.
I just had one more question. I saw that when I was trying to figure out what questions to ask, I saw that you were married to a writer named Megan Crane. So her being a writer and you being an artist, have you ever talked about the two of you collaborating on something?
We have, yeah. Megan is an amazing writer. I think she's on her 170th book. She's incredibly prolific.
Wow.
Yeah, she writes like 5 to 10 books a year and has been doing that for a very long time. She and I have worked on a bunch of stuff. We have occasionally pitched and even sold stuff that hasn't happened for one reason or another, but we have several ideas that we've been working on that we're gonna find a place to. We're both super busy, but we have all these really cool ideas that we're gonna try and like shoehorn in to our projects or to our time. Yeah, there's cool stuff. She's great.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I take it back. I did.
And it's different too because like Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that she writes. So the stuff that she does is she writes romance novels and she writes mystery adventure and she writes some fantasy stuff. And so, but all her stuff is very emotionally intuitive and solid, whereas I am not that way with my storytelling. So
it's not like
I tend
not quite like when you drew the Punisher squaring off against Blade.
Oh God, that was such a such a strange comic. It was fun to do, and I like those characters. But my strong suit is drawing guys fighting, not talking to each other. I mean, I just am not that good at it. Yeah, that was a fun one.
The Marvel Team Up issue 8, I believe.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, I think it is 8.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
When Robert Kirkman was drawing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Robert was writing it, and it's a really fun issue. And I did my best to make it super interesting and convey all the emotion that they were going through. And one of my heroes is Kevin McGuire, and he would have done that book brilliantly. Like he would have given everyone the right expression at the right time. And I am just not that. I'm not that subtle. I'm much better at a guy kicking a wall than I am relating.
Well, the expression you had on the Punisher's face when he saw and realized the vampires were real, that was good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. That was a funny, like that was one of the weird ones too. Like I got asked if I wanted to do it, and I was said like, hey, it's going to be the Punisher and Blade, and they're going to actually be fighting a vampire gang, like mafia guys. And I went, oh, super cool. And they did do that at the end, but then there was a lot of stuff of them on the rooftop talking about what it meant to be them. And I think that's that was a very interesting choice for the book.
Yeah. Going back to the Kickstarter, I did have one more question. Since
Sure.
since it's only been a couple days and you're so close to being fully funded and reaching the goal,
Mhm.
do you and James have any stretch goals planned for? Okay, we hit the goal. Now, if we hit this, you're going to get this. If we hit this, you're going to get this.
We do. We have a ton. So one of the stretch goals that we're going to do is a PDF of all the original pitch art that we did to sell the book originally, and so that's a lot of art that no one's seen yet, and also James's script that I have drawn on. So all my little doodles on the side. I know that it's kind of fun to see that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's one of the bonus PDFs that people are going to get, just like a behind the scenes kind of thing. And then we have I did a character sheet for Rondo, a D&D style character sheet where it has all his stats and all his characteristics. And James has written a cool little like bio for him. So that'll be a stretch goal. That'll be just a gift that everyone can get that. And then I'm going to be doing a big dragon that Brennan's going to color, and then we're going to send that out as like a wallpaper.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be one. And I think that's all the ones we have planned at the moment. Do you guys have any ideas for cool stretch goals?
Like I said, I end up backing a lot of Kickstarter comics, and I like that you're seeing now a lot of established creators that are kind of going to Kickstarter and saying, you know what, I'm going to go here for whatever reason, but I'm going to go here and fund it myself and do it, and then be able to have that complete creative freedom to do whatever they want. Like Carl Kessel's done a bunch of them. He's done Impossible Jones with David Hahn, and he's done the Section Zero stuff with Tom Grummett, and and I've seen
I love the Tom Grummett stuff. That stuff was great. Yeah,
and I've seen a bunch of, like, one of the things Kessel did with the last Impossible Jones one was he actually got an Impossible Jones tattoo.
Oh wow, okay, interesting.
But I've seen the stuff that they do. They have like posters and stickers and T-shirts, and they get like the little the chibi design for characters to do stickers and and pins and postcards and stuff.
Yeah, I think we are doing postcards as one of the reward tiers. I think it's one of the add-ons actually. So I did a bunch of postcards they're like based on the old school travel postcards. Like visit Lumpland, and that kind of thing. Lumpland's the name of that city, that big city. So I've done a couple of postcards for a 4-card set for that. And
oh, cool.
I think that's an add-on, and then I would love to do some stickers. I think that's a really great idea.
Perhaps in the future, when you've got enough books done and the world established, you guys can make your own little can make like a Rogue's Kingdom board game.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you say that. So they play this game, right? So they play this game in the series, and James has created. It's played with triangular cards, and so I've been working on trying to figure out how to make these triangle cards almost like a playing deck / tarot deck kind of like thing, and like there's even so I think that is something that eventually they'll be available as the actual
card deck.
Yeah,
That
would be cool.
Yeah, it'd be a cool card deck. So that you could actually, that it would be fun. It'd be kind of like, it'll be a cross between, you could play dominoes kind of with it, or you could play, I mean, you can play anything you want with it, but like the two main games will be sort of a version of Hearts, where you're collecting tricks, and then a version of dominoes where you're playing the numbers. The idea is that when I was in the Army, like you always had to have two things on you. You always had apart from all your gear, but like a deck of cards and a harmonica. So I definitely want to have like the idea that Rondo, Peachy always have a deck of cards on them, so you can always just play. And wherever you go, people play the same card.
That's an awesome idea. That's pretty unique too.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. You ever thought maybe doing like as a stretch goal, doing like a maybe like a 3D printing of like one of the daggers or one of the weapons out of the story?
Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah, well, that's a great idea. Hell, I want that. I mean, if we're gonna make it, I want it. That's a really cool idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would have to be a one-off thing, like you see in some campaigns where they have like a real high level. We'll draw you as a character in the story. I guess.
We're gonna add that one. A friend like
oh, cool.
James, because we were asked to do that, and we thought like, well, what can we do? The first and second issue are already done, but we have a character. We have a guard who gets killed in the third issue, so I think we're gonna offer that as a tier. Like you could be drawn in the book in the third issue as a character with some lines and a bit of a grisly death.
I'm in.
Yeah.
That would be a nice piece of art to have framed in your wall. What's this? Oh, this is the comic page where I was brutally murdered.
Exactly.
Jeff Johnson signed it for me.
Right. Yep. Yeah, there you go. It reminds me, like Scott Koblish did the mini deaths of Scott Koblish. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I actually got one more question for you.
Sure.
Do you go on any like comic tours? Like, do you do cons?
I
do. You go travel? Do you travel a lot of the country?
I do. So I just got back from Memphis, where I was working at the Heroes Initiative table. So signing and doing drawings and collecting money for Heroes Initiative. I do that sometimes, and I love that. That's always fun. And then wherever Scott Collins goes, I try and go because we're old friends, and it's a great way to get a little vacation. So, and then I'm actually going to be in Stockholm in a couple weeks for the Stockholm Comic Con. Yeah, that just sort of fell out of the sky. So yeah, I love going to shows. I love, as you could tell, I love talking about comics. I love comics. So whenever I get to go to a show and hang out with comic people, it's always one of my favorite things to do.
All right. Well, next year, end of September, is Baltimore Comic Con.
I've always wanted to go Baltimore. I hear it's a great show.
It is a great show.
Okay.
If you go there, we're definitely hitting it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first round's on me then.
In fact, me and Sal actually just live, maybe about 15, 20 minutes away from each other. But all the CODEX people, like, we're kind of spread out all over the place. There's one guy that's not too far from us in Virginia, but some in the Midwest and all over the place, and they're all coming in from out of town next year, so we can all go to Baltimore Comic Con and all film like the podcast in person together instead of just do it on the separate screens.
Right on. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, so it's as all the creators that we talk to there say, like, that's the show to go to if you love comics.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, count me in.
So hopefully we'll be able to see you there next year.
Right on.
All right. Well, thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. As everyone can see on the bottom there, the Rogues Kingdom on Kickstarter. It is going now. It has about 20 some more days to go, and it is almost fully backed. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for helping out with that, and thanks for hanging out. This has been a lot of fun. We can do this anytime.
Definitely.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, so yeah, go on the link there and check out Rogues Kingdom on Kickstarter, and make sure that you also check Jeff out on his socials here on Instagram and Twitter that you can see here. And as far as socials go, make sure that you check us out on all the socials. Just go and type in the CODEX Station, and you can check us out online at thecodexstation.com too. And anything you'd like to add, Sal?
No, actually I don't. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to have you back on the show again.
Yes, that was a pleasure.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you when it gets to talk to you again when it gets close to the campaign, when it's getting ready to end, or when you're going to do the second campaign too.
Right on.
All right. So again, thank you for joining us. I've been Dan Kelly, and this here is Sal with me talking to Jeff Johnson. And until next time, we'll catch you by the spinner rack. Sal, you want to do your sign out too?
I hope you guys have a 9.8 day.
That's nice. I like that.